I will call the Budget Review Committee to order on April 22nd at 7 PM here in the Aldermanic Chamber. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman at Large Michael O'Brien is present. Alderman at Large Ben Clemens.
Here.
Alderman Jan Schmidt.
I'm here.
Okay. Also in our chairman, Alderman at Large Laurie Wilshire is present. Also in attendance is Alderman Clee. Excused for tonight's meeting is Richard A. Dow, Alderman at Large David C. Tender, and Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly.
Thank you. Public comment. Seeing none, communications.
There is none.
Unfinished business.
There is none.
New business.
There is none.
Table, no, we don't need to take that off the table.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to take from the table R-19-123 relative to the adoption of fiscal year 2020 proposed budget for the City of Nashua, General Enterprise and Special Revenue Funds.
Motion is to take from the table Resolution 19-123, which is the budget. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Okay, tonight, we will be discussing public services, the airport, Pinewood, Woodlawn, Edgewood Cemeteries, and the public library. So, this evening, we will call up Airport Authority. Welcome.
Good evening.
Come up, have a seat. Have a seat up here. We want you to be comfortable, but not for too long. Just kidding. Just kidding. Red Sox get rained out tonight.
Yes.
Okay. That means a doubleheader tomorrow.
So there's no food service here then, huh?
No, no. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and your guests this evening.
Hi, my name's Chris Lynch. I'm the airport manager. To my left, this is Chairman Farrell Woods, Chairman of the Nashua Airport Authority, and Treasurer David Heath, Treasurer of the Nashua Airport Authority.
Thank you. Would you give the committee a little brief overview of your budget this year?
Sure. Historically, and as it continues, operationally, we're in the black, and I've provided you with a copy of our year-to-date, month-to-date cumulative actuals. So we're not here for our operational budget. As you know, each year we submit to the Capital Improvement Committee for capital infrastructure projects. And we had one project on the books for fiscal year 2020. And I gave a little handout tonight. And we've discussed this previously with the Capital Improvement Committee, as well as I had a meeting with Mayor Donchis, Chief of Staff Kleiner, and CFO John Griffin. And one of the things we discussed is when these projects are scoped, they were far under scoped, grossly under scoped. And we knew that was happening, so we kind of anticipated that. And we most recently, last Wednesday, received the final numbers because it came back, the bids were opened. And our initial asking was for $2 million, what was the original? I'm sorry. The city share would have been $122,500, but because the project went up in scope from $2.4 million to $3.8 million, the city share that we're requesting now is $191,819. And that's just to let you know the reasoning behind the increase. Unfortunately, at the time when we have to submit the 6-year plan to the city, it's the same time we're starting the scoping for the projects with the FAA. And our hands are tied with the FAA. So that's what's going on there. Do you have any questions? Anybody have any questions?
Anybody in the committee have any questions? Alderman Clemens.
Thank you. So the rehab of the taxiways, is that, that's just rehabbing what's already there, it's not adding anything to it?
Correct. It will be a reclaim process. Everything that's there that we're replacing is literally falling apart. You can just about dismantle it with your hands at this point. It's far beyond its useful life. So it'll be reclaimed, it gets ground up, part of it gets reused, they bring other materials in, but they're not adding any paved surfaces, to answer your question.
Okay.
It is, however, being moved. Right? That's just
What's being moved?
The taxiway.
No,
Oh, that's not this project?
no.
It's not this project.
Okay, never mind. Strike that.
Do you follow up?
Yeah, so, but my question is, in regards to the initial versus what you're requesting here, what was in the budget? In the budget book, is it 122 or is it
122.
191?
It's 122.
And what happens if you don't get the extra money? Just
Someone's coming looking for me.
hypothetical.
Well, let me give you a little more detail on the project.
Okay,
We put in for this project, nothing's guaranteed with the FAA.
sure.
We have, as the airport authority, in the past year, purchased what are known as non-primary entitlement funds from other airports. Every airport in the state receives $150,000 a year from the federal government in what they call non-primary entitlements. If they don't use those within 3 years, they go back to wherever they came from, they don't
Right.
stay in the state. So the plan is, if there's some other airport can use them, you can purchase them. So for instance, I purchased, I believe it was $326,000 worth for less than 5% in the last year. All this money helps us in getting these projects funded with the FAA and the DOT. So when New Hampshire DOT, who controls the purse strings for all the monies, they see us making this good faith effort and contributing, they're more likely to try to help us out with our projects. So we've purchased a few of those to help in this process. And of course, it's a bargain. Anybody would buy money at 5% on the dollar. If I can only buy it personally, we'd be in really good shape.
Alderman
Yeah,
Clemmons.
so, have you spoken to the mayor about this extra request at all, or is this?
We talked about this in the meeting that we had on February 22nd in the afternoon. We discussed that we knew it was coming, but we didn't get this figure till last Wednesday.
Okay,
The engineers came to our meeting, all the bidding was finalized, and that's when it was brought to our table at that point.
last question. How much, so I don't know if you're, how familiar, I'm sure you're familiar with the escrow process in the city, and I'm wondering how, would it be detrimental if for some reason we had to fund that additional cost through like an escrow, which is basically year-end money left over from, that wasn't spent from this year's budget to next?
Yep.
If that didn't get appropriated till, I don't know, September, October, how much of a detriment would that be to this project?
Not a problem at all, can work with that. This project, in all reality, if everything goes right with the FAA and the DOT, we'd like to see shovels in the ground in August or September. So the job doesn't even start until then.
Okay,
Okay, so I'm fine with that. I guess the thing I was leading up to, this project, we tried to get all the money we could. We tried to get as much of this part of the job scoped out as we could, because it's in bad shape, these areas we're talking about. And these are all surrounding the hangars too, by the way, where all the people that pay the property taxes, some of these people have to pull their planes out and tug them down the alleyway till they can start them up, because it kicks up all the asphalt. So we're really trying to take care of the infrastructure. If we can't get all the money from the FAA, there's always that possibility. You don't get all the money immediately for the project, so they phase the project out. So even if you can't approve the 191, until the year end, that would work out fine too, I'm sure. Because I have a feeling this project is gonna go in phases. In a perfect world, they grant it all in one fell swoop, and that's fantastic, but we built it in phases just in case they don't.
okay, thank you.
There's a lot of unknowns, unfortunately, and we don't know until the FAA drops the gavel and says, okay, here you go.
Understood.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. Is there gonna be, when you're resurfacing here, any work being done to increase the weight of the taxiway. Now, I know we did pass at the state level, we talked about it, trying to get more flights coming in here, storage of probably bigger aircraft where we'll see some profitability there. Is the taxiway going to be able to handle that?
On the section that we're doing the paving, most of it's between the hangars. And I discussed that with the engineers, and none of that is gonna change because there are no large corporate aircraft, so to speak, that'll be in and out of these hangar areas. But there is an inner taxiway that people taxi on. And, I don't think we discussed that inner taxiway. I remember discussing it on the pavements in between the hangars. But, I mean, I've seen Global Expresses taxi through there, and I know that it meets the weight criteria. I don't know how much bigger we could actually get in there than we had a Global 7500 in there a couple weeks ago. And it's about as big as they get.
As an operational matter, I don't think the ATC puts the corporate airplanes on the inner taxiway.
No, you're right, they don't. So the portion will be paving, they don't, you're right, it's just general aviation aircraft that go on that, and there's still some twin engines, but none of the big corporate jets, no.
Okay, because, follow up if I may.
Sure.
What I am concerned about, would there be any risk of engines and fodder being on the field with the project, or the failure of the taxiway in itself, if it's crumbles or something gets picked up by the jet engine, and then it's a missile, whatever it does to the engine too, so.
And that's one of our biggest fears, that's why we wanna get it all taken care of. Because that happens, it hasn't happened here. But it does happen, that's why we like to stay ahead of it.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Next up, Pinewood Cemetery, Woodlawn Cemetery, Edgewood and Suburban Cemeteries. Good evening. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening. My name is Tom Maffrey. I'm on the trustees of the Edgewood Suburban Cemeteries. Back on the 21st of February, we presented our budget to the mayor and CFO John Griffin. Who else was there, Jeff? I'm not sure. Ms. Kleiner was there. Dave Fedette and Janet Graziano was there. We got, came in under budget. The mayor was happy about that. A couple questions asked at that time about our summer help. We told them we had to go up in salary on the summer help, an extra $1 per hour. $2 per hour, I'm sorry. That was fine. He wanted to know about if we thought about paving our pathways up there. We said we had a meeting, we discussed, but that's about as far as we got with it right at this moment. And outside of that, I think everything was sufficient, I believe.
Yeah, I think the highlights of the budget really is we kind of shuffled some money around into, well, payroll, basically, summer help or temporary help, I think, as it's listed in the budget, because we had to go up to $14 in order to get any help. So we've kind of squeezed everything else a little bit to what we think we can handle, and that's our number one priority, is to get help. If we don't have any employees, there's no point in having anything else. So that's the short version on a budget summary.
Okay, so your budget starts on page 211, the appropriations for Pinewood. The committee-
Pinewood-
Pinewood is not us.
Oh, Pinewood is not you.
Pinewood and
You're-
Woodlawn, apparently
Sorry.
they're not here, I don't know.
Apparently not here. You're Edgewood
So
and
this is
Suburban.
Edgewood
With
and
Suburban.
Suburban,
Oh, I
which
knew
is one
that.
budget, right.
Okay. So Edgewood starts on page 214.
Guess they have different pages.
Committee have any questions on the Edgewood and Suburban Cemeteries budget?
on the plus side, on the revenue side, if I may, the trustees have been working to try to increase the revenue amounts, particularly from the trust funds. As you may know, Woodlawn's done pretty good with that, and they're trying a couple of different investment policies, I guess, if you will. I'm not the expert on all that, quite frankly. That's one area I try to stay out of, is the trust funds. That's the trustees' job, but they're trying to push that up a little bit. And
Yeah, I see that
this
on-
year, we're going to be up quite a bit from what we estimated. And
On,
hopefully, that will continue.
On page 49 on the budget, on the revenue side, 291.8 up from 226, so,
And I think we're pretty much on,
Target.
well, not quite to, yeah, we might be close to that for this year, actually.
to what, the 226 or the
No, to
291?
the two, where I think we've already exceeded that.
Wow, good, good. And what do
We're
you
real
attribute
close.
that to?
Mostly the trust funds.
Trust funds.
And their change in investing to try to squeeze some more
Terrific.
money out of it. One thing they discovered that the fees, the TD Wealth is who's handling this, and the fees were being taken out of our revenue. And it was discovered that the fees can be charged to the principal. So they charge a fair amount of money. I can't quote what it is, but, so that's an additional money, plus we're, like I say, doing a little bit better investment-wise.
Terrific. Anything else from the committee? That was a, thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for being here, we appreciate it. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The socks are rained out.
Next is the public library. Hi there. How are you? Good. Good. Hi there. So the revenue is on page 50, the appropriations are on 221. I will let you give us a summary of your budget, if you would please do that for us.
Sure. I suspect that you all saw the worksheet that we completed about line items that changed and why.
Can you
Set it-
identify yourself when you
I'm sorry.
speak? I'm sorry. My bad.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jen McCormick. I'm the
Thank you.
director at the library.
Thank you.
Linda Lamb, I'm the chair of the trustees at the library.
So there are just a few changes that I would like to highlight for this year, and I'm sure my chairman will chime in a little bit. The big change, the one that's most important to us and most exciting, is we were able to add funds to the overtime budget for next year so that we'll be able to have Sunday hours all year round instead of stopping in the middle of May. And in anticipation of a favorable decision, we're actually starting that now. So the library will be open every Sunday for the year, with the exception of the Memorial Day and Labor Day weekends. We do, I feel like, 2 3-day weekends a year. It's
That's
be
good news.
There is a shift in our publications line, 61807, publications, that's books and materials. That went down a little bit. You'll see the subscriptions line went up a similar amount. That's part of our shift from buying print or hard copy materials to streaming and digital services. Starting May 1st, we'll be offering Canopy, which is a streaming film service that offers a lot of downloadable films, a lot of independent films, a lot of documentaries. The great courses are available. The best part of that product is it comes with public performance rights. So we're already working with a variety of agencies in the city to plan how they can use those films to provide programming outside of the library building.
One thing that Jen's folks have seen is that the print circulations are across the board going down. People want ebooks, they want to be able to stream. And I think that the changes that she's making are really exciting because not only are we offering more services, but with the ebooks themselves, multiple people can check out a copy at the same time, which is one of my favorite things.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Forgot to mention, yeah, one of the services we're working with will provide simultaneous use of ebooks and audiobooks. We'll offer both because that's a very pricey way to do things. We're also increasing the collection of digital magazines that we offer, which is also more expensive than you'd think, but they allow for simultaneous use. Another change I want to talk about, since we're on TV, is the microfilm, microfiche budget line, which is $53,479. That's a really small shift, $800, but I'm working with the Telegraph and a vendor on being able to take all past issues of the Telegraph and digitize them and make them available to people that way, rather than putting them on microfilm and then in 30 years spending $30,000 to get them digitized, which is what we did with the last chunk. So stay tuned on that. Heather and I are talking, but that's another positive shift. And that's all I need to highlight, unless, Linda, you have.
That covers the biggies. And it's really, the trustees are very pleased because Jen has not only managed to meet the mayor's goal of coming in under the percentage, but also meet our goals of being able to be open more and serve more folks. And she's done some really great things with the school department this past year, and looking to expand the summer program and bring the ELL aspect in, which is once again meeting the needs of more people across a wider range.
Nice. Questions? Alderman Clemmons?
Thank you. The library has an endowment, is that correct?
Yes.
What is the balance of that?
The total balance of all the invested funds is around $6 million. That's by no means an exact figure.
Okay, that's really healthy. What is, I assume we get interest income off of that?
Yes, there is interest. I should note, Alderman Clemmons, that the majority of those trusts are restricted in use.
Okay. So what do we, okay, so it's not like the interest that we get on some of those would offset the budget, is that?
Correct, right. So one example, the Stearns Fund is the biggest fund, and that's, I think, in the vicinity of $3 or $4 million. We spend on average, I'm going to turn to Linda, $75,000 to $100,000 a year out of that on, that can only be used for books and materials not normally purchased by the city of Nashua. So we used it for the digitization project. We buy ebooks out of that. We fund special projects in the collection if staff wants to establish a collection. There's also the Zelonis Fund is another fairly healthy one. Most of the group will know that's to be spent on projects that promote Lithuanian culture. And then there's the Burbank Trust, which also has a healthy balance. I couldn't tell you what that number is, and that's to be used to purchase works of art by living artists. So probably 90% of the trust fund budget has its own special use.
Okay, no, thank you very much.
Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I seem to remember last year's budget, did we not discuss the courtyard in front? And I know that isn't under your budget right now.
Right.
But have things come forward? I think they have to some degree. Are they looking to improve the footprint, to clean it up, to make our library more attractive to our citizens? Can you tell us about that, please?
Very, very much so. In fact, was it last week or week before, we had a meeting of the Plaza Renovation Committee with the mayor and Great American Downtown and sundry others. Public Works was there.
And community development.
And community development, thank you. Where we tossed around, and an architect, which we have hired, who's showed us some really impressive work and very creative ideas on ways to perhaps break up the space, make it more welcoming to the type of patron we would like to see using it, more positive uses, and make it more welcoming. We threw out enough ideas to basically carpet the entire downtown if we did every single one of them. But what I think we saw overall was a lot of passion and a lot of commitment to try to make it a better space and try to make it a cohesive space rather than the sort of piecemeal fixes we've been doing to discourage sundry non-positive uses. The next meeting, we were actually just talking while we were waiting, the next meeting is probably going to be May.
I would say a couple of weeks out for the next planning meeting, and then there'll be 2 different opportunities for the public to see plans, and we'll host those public input sessions in the Chandler Wing in the main space, so people can come and see. There'll be a couple of different options. We're doing this in cooperation with community development, which is great because they're the real experts in space planning.
And follow up if I may. Sure. We've also, too, I remember there was an issue with our esteemed Knights of the Road that were seeking shelter in various places there, and that's being addressed as well, too, to some degree.
As much as is possible. I think, the
understand.
architecture of the building does invite, well, it's comfort when it's raining and it's cold, but yes, we do get a lot of attention from the police department.
Good.
Alderman Clee.
I have 2 questions. One is, when you talked about the microfilm, I know it's only an $800 difference. You talked about digitizing. The Telegraph already has a digital availability. Are they willing to work with you to get it? Or is it a different kind of digitizing?
No,
that you're looking
it would be the same. So yes, I don't want to say too much. So Heather Henline and I did have a conversation about
you're talking-
the
that you're negotiating.
digitization they're already doing and
Okay.
how we could work together.
Okay,
Yep.
I'll let that go. The other question I have is when I'm looking at your, the fringe benefits, and I look at 52,300, there's a big jump of $100,000 from currently to what your request is on that one account.
So
Why
the
much?
fringe benefits, we really don't budget those. Those are the only.
numbers are given to you, is that?
Correct. So the only fringe benefit that the board and I have any influence over is the tuition reimbursement line, which I think is $5,000. So the rest of it
Is
is,
that one account, the benefits account, 52300, it took over $100,000 jump from one year.
that's related to benefit costs that are not under our purview.
Thank you.
Alderman Clemmons.
A little off topic, but sort of. We heard in a separate meeting, and this is sort of outside the scope, so, Madam Chairman, if I'm out of line, just tell me so, but,
Okay.
the parking lot, people have complained about the paying for, the parking lot. Has the library advocated the use of the app, the pay by
Yes.
space, and has that helped ease I guess what I hear is there's a line sometimes at that pay station.
Correct.
Have people taken to the phone app and has the line gone down?
The app has been particularly helpful on weekday mornings for story time and other family activities. The app, nor the kiosk, is all that helpful for our midday concerts where a more elderly population would come.
Okay,
So our Wednesdays Bach lunch concerts where those are not smartphone users, and even the kiosk can be daunting.
okay. So there's certain times when, okay, that makes sense, I guess. So do you think a second kiosk there would be helpful?
Not as helpful as free parking.
Well, I
Agree. Be
I don't
careful what
think-
you ask for, though.
I don't think that, if it's up to me, that won't happen, but I'll just be honest with you. But, I'm wondering if a second kiosk though would help that situation.
I'm not sure if that would really help. I think promoting the use of the app is really the way to go. And The parking office, by the way, has been incredibly helpful and responsive. And I think this summer, we plan to send some folks out with our own, we're going to make up our own little quarter sheets just to encourage people as they're getting out of their cars to sign up. We're also incorporating it in our publicity for some of the bigger summer events that people should plan an extra 10 minutes.
Okay.
I know that an extra kiosk would be very expensive, and I think having a second kiosk even further away from where my security staff could help them would probably not relieve what people are complaining about.
No, that's good.
Lines at 2 places.
Right.
That's good to know, because that was a consideration that we had talked about in a different committee. And obviously, it's an important, investment as far as what the Downtown Improvements Committee is going to, where those resources are going to be allocated. So I really appreciate your response there. And I'm glad to hear that the app is helping. And, hopefully, if there's anything that on the city side we can do to help that, let's get some more education out there.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
thank you.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. Further to that end, you brought up a very good point, and perhaps maybe a recommendation, say you're going to do some extracurricular to get the information, maybe after one of these, target your group, as a suggestion, if I may, but target your group and some of that concert, elderly concert to come in, offer maybe somebody off to the side to go teach you how to install the app if the phones are
Sure.
applicable,
Yep.
and to go that route, because I think this is a population that is suffering in silence, because they don't, technology has moved on a little
Right.
bit. Thank God I got kids, they're keeping me in the loop, and my grandchildren are texting and everything, so. But I don't see that across the board with some other folks, you know?
Right.
So, they probably can adapt to it, they most certainly can, it's just, maybe if we show them the way, that might
Yeah.
help. Just a suggestion.
That's an excellent suggestion. Thank you.
Any further questions for the library? You are off the hook and
Great.
early.
Thank you. I think you are too.
I wasn't going to say that, Jen, but thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Great job over there.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to table R-19-123.
The motion is to table the budget. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. General discussion. Public comment. Remarks by Alderman. I just want to say that the special Board of Aldermen meeting scheduled for tomorrow night at 7 a.m. has been canceled.
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
I wouldn't be here at the AM.
I wouldn't be here. Tomorrow night's special meeting at 7 p.m. has been canceled, so our regular 7:30 full board meeting will still be on. Any other discussion? No need for non-public. Is there a motion? Alderman Clemmons.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we are adjourned at 7:34 p.m.